the Democratic Republic of Sports. The Sportsocracy with ESPN Asheville hosts Tank Spencer and Jeremy Greene.
It is off-season files time, and it's now time to talk about the Dallas Cowboys and their options for the upcoming offseason in the NFL. Obviously, everything centering around the decision on not Deshaun Watson.
Nope,
it's that other quarterback. It's the other one that everybody's talking about, Dak Prescott, on what they're going to do with him. They're going to re-sign him. I mean, it's not a question.
Nope.
You got to franchise tag him a second time and hope that you can come to a long-term deal. Which one do you think happens? Do you think they reach the long-term deal, or are they going to have to settle for the franchise tag one more year?
Franchise tag. They're going to tag him again. And I think that may mean this is the last year you see Dak Prescott in Dallas. There's something that I can't figure out with this of why they can't get this done. And, I mean, maybe it's they live by my theory. If you're not a top three quarterback, I'm not paying you $35 million.
Right.
I'm just not going to do it. I mean, I'll do it for a year. But, I mean, they've got deals they can restructure to get under the cap, add some pieces. They do have draft picks. I just don't know how this team's going to get drastically better. I mean, they have great weapons. They're going to be able to score. And hopefully the move from the 3-4, which was an absolute abject disaster under Mike Nolan,
right,
that'll allow, if Jalen Smith's back, Leighton Vander Esch, it'll allow the defense to be what it's supposed to be. This team needs a corner, something ferocious, though. But, yes, I do. To answer your original question, I think Dak will be franchised, and we'll know that sometime within the next 24 to 36 hours.
Well, what's that going to do with their cap space? I mean, is that going to wipe out everything that they have to spend?
I mean, they have deals they could restructure. You know, DeMarcus Lawrence, Amari Cooper, both guys that have, you know, guaranteed money that can be converted and things like that to give them a little bit more play. They're not in as bad of a cap shape as you would think.
Yeah.
The Ezekiel Elliott deal is an albatross, but other than that, and I think he's going to get back to where he's supposed to be. Last year, it looked like he got overweight. The fact that he wasn't, you know, every team in the league knew what they were going to do. Mm-hmm. You know, when Dak's gone, there's no fear of, nobody's scared of Andy Dalton. No. I mean, he's decent enough. He showed how good CeeDee Lamb is. Mm-hmm. And that's one of the things you got to remember with this team. They have three high-end receivers. CeeDee Lamb is, to me, is one of the 5 best young receivers in the league. Amari Cooper's a true one, and I still like Michael Gallup.
Mm-hmm. I like Michael Gallup a lot as well. There's no doubt that they have the skill position pieces to be successful. I mean, I could use a tight end with the Dallas Cowboys, but they got other needs.
This is a good year to need that, too, because there's a few of them. I mean, to me, this is the drop-dead spot for Kyle Pitts. I don't see him. I don't necessarily see him getting a 10, but I sure as hell don't see him getting past 10.
Right.
And I don't think he's an inline tight end, so he's too talented for that. And he's not a great blocker. He's fine.
I think pretty much every mock that I've seen so far has the Dallas Cowboys taking a cornerback at that 10 spot.
If they're lucky, Patrick Surtain will fall to 10. He's the best corner in this draft. He fits every scheme. There's really no limitation on him. I like Caleb Farley as well. Mm-hmm. I think that's how things will eventually go, is that one of these corners will fall to them, and that will be the new centerpiece of the secondary. You know, losing Byron Jones hurt. I understand that he's not to me, he's not a top 5 in the NFL corner, but it was very obvious he wasn't there last year. Mm-hmm. You know, you're going to probably lose Chido Awuzie. You really need to retool this secondary, and I think that's their biggest need going into this offseason. Other than re-signing Dak Prescott.
They also need to figure out a way to stop the run. That was one thing that killed them last year, was giving up a lot on the ground. I think they were, if not the worst team, they were one of the worst teams in the league after first contact. Giving up like 3 yards after first contact, which is ridiculous. The number 1 team in the NFL, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, gave up about a yard after first contact last year. And bolstering that defensive line could be the big target for them in the draft. Again, I don't know what they can do in free agency. Once they sign Dak, that money kind of goes away.
It's not going to be a tremendous amount, But, I mean, the thing you got to understand is there's going to be a lot of teams that are killed against the cap. They're doing everything, restructuring every deal just to get under it. Dallas is not going to be necessarily in that scenario. They have $20 million in cap space before they re-sign Dak, before they do anything else. And they do have a lot of movable pieces. And it's not – these aren't, oh, God, look what it's going to do to us next year. You know, Amari Cooper signed for multiple years. They can stretch that out for a long time.
Right.
And I think they're going to do that. You know, I would love to see them sign Dak long term. I mean, but Dallas is not bad enough to wind up with a Sam Howell or a Keaton Slovis. They're not in play for the quarterbacks of this year. And that's the thing. You get into this murky territory of Dak's clearly the best quarterback that will be on this team within the next 3 years, no matter what you do. You know, the Russell Wilson thing, I'll believe it when I see it. You know, and other than that, you're just in this murky, gross territory, and your receivers are too good to be trying to bring along another quarterback. So, I mean, I would like to see a long-term deal done with Dak. I like Dak. There's just been something about these negotiations that we haven't gotten anywhere in 3 years. I mean, I really don't feel like we're any closer to a deal today than we were 2 years ago. So they're just kind of in a holding pattern. And the biggest question is how much better can the defense get than it was last year? Honestly, I don't think it can get much worse. So if you get Zeke back to being a top 8 in the NFL running back, because he was a disaster last year, you get him back to where he was, the offense continues to develop, you hit on a few draft picks. I still think this is the best team in the NFC East.
I would agree with that, but it's going to depend on what Washington does in the offseason.
Okay, so I mean, honestly, what could Washington do that on paper they go into 2021 better than the Cowboys? Just solely off the switch to the 4-3, they're better because they have the better quarterback, they have better weapons, they have better line because Washington is going to lose Sheriff. Philadelphia is irrelevant, and to me, so are the New York Giants.
Right.
So, I mean, you're in good position to be in the playoffs and take your chances. You know, this is a little different than what I've said about, you know, Baltimore and a few of these other teams that have two really good teams in their division. This is a shit division. And they could easily corner the market on this for the next 3 to 4 years just by having Dak Prescott and having him healthy.
But can they reach the long-term deal? That's the question. And last we are hearing from Dak Prescott's agent is basically give us 39 or we're walking.
And that would be tough for me, but I'm hoping they can get something done. I just don't believe it. Everything I've heard is it's going to be a franchise tag. If it's a tag and he plays under it another year, you think it's contentious now, it will be markedly more contentious next year.
Right. When they have no more options left, how contentious do those negotiations get? Because at that point, you know, I think Dak Prescott really does have all the power in that discussion.
He does. He does. I mean, to me, it would almost be worth it to do the deal now just to keep it from being as contentious as it could get.
They've got the 10th overall pick in the NFL draft. We think it's going to be a cornerback. What else could they go after at that 10 spot if they don't fall in love with Caleb Farley and, say, Patrick Surtain's, not on the board anymore?
I think it's either Caleb Farley, Patrick Surtain, or Kyle Pitts. I don't see any other player falling in right there. I mean, they might fall in love with Rashawn Slater, but I have him projected as an interior lineman, and you're not taking one that high. He's not Quentin Nelson good. He's Quentin Nelson versatile, and I think he will be a starter in this league for a long time. I don't see that happening. Then you get down the line with Dallas. They're going to have to replace Aldon Smith because I think they priced themselves. He was so good last year at what he was asked to do that I think they priced themselves out on him. Plus, he's a 3-4 guy anyway, so he doesn't really fit the scheme. The good thing is that they're not going to lose a tremendous amount. They don't have, outside of Joe Looney, they only have a handful of guys that played over 50% of the snaps last year. I'd like to see them re-sign Jordan Lewis. I know not every Cowboy fan loved him, but he's at least a depth guy. And it feels like the secondary has been such turnover year in and year out that just some form of consistency, I think, would be tremendous for Dallas going into next year.
I think the Cowboys have been snake bitten by injuries. Obviously, the injuries to that offensive line killed them. Obviously, the Dak Prescott injury was unbelievable. I mean, he went out in week 5, I believe it was this year, and he still led the NFL in passing at like week 8. That's how good his stats were in the first 5 weeks of the season. I think they get him back, and they can be a contender.
And another thing I think you have to really look at with the Cowboys is they drafted particularly well last year. I like Trayvon Diggs. Obviously, CeeDee Lamb was good. I like Neville Gallimore as a depth guy. I'm still in love with Tyler Biadasz, and that's not going to change. I screamed his name from the rooftop last year.
You did.
And I think he's going to be a consistent presence for them. You just have to hit on some more of these guys. You need another draft like you had last year. And you've had a few of those. The 2018 wasn't bad. You hit on Van Der Esch. Connor Williams is a usable piece. I still like Gallup. You just got to avoid like 2017 when you went Taco Charlton and a few other guys that didn't exactly contribute at a high level.
Overall team needs for the Dallas Cowboys.
The biggest one to me is corner. I could see them taking 2 of those in the first 4 rounds. Just somebody to pair with Trayvon Diggs. And, I mean, then you could see that secondary improve. They're going to need a safety at some point. But other than that, they don't have, like, massive needs. Their line's not as good as it was when Travis Frederick was playing. I get that. It's still not bad. If Tyron Smith's healthy and the other pieces along that line are healthy, it's still not a bad line. It's top 10 in the NFL offensive line. Get those guys back healthy. Find a tight end if you think it's Dalton Schultz. I mean, he did have some moments last year. I don't think he would be a tremendously expensive to bring back. And then the offense is pretty set. You got to figure out the defense because the defense was a sieve. But like I said, I think a lot of that's on Mike Nolan, a lot on trying to force his scheme on personnel that didn't fit it, and just switching into that 4-3 with Dan Quinn is going to be leaps and bounds ahead of what it was.
What do you think the ceiling for the Dallas Cowboys in 2021 can be?
I think they can win the NFC East. I don't see any way that they pass the NFC West teams. I don't think they're going to be better than Green Bay. They could get lucky and win a game in the playoffs. And coming from where you were last year to that's a market improvement.
For a team that has not won very many playoff games in recent memory, well, not I guess in all of our memory, since 1993, they've won, 3 playoff games, I think, since 1993?
No.
Something like that?
They were in the Super Bowl in the mid-'90s. I think you're talking about since like 98.
98, excuse me.
Yeah, you're too early because they won the Super Bowl in 93.
Right. All right, be sure to like and subscribe to the Sportsocracy. You'll be able to follow all of our off-season previews for every NFL team on demand. I'm Tank Spencer. He's Jeremy Greene. We are live from the Wicked Weed studio, wickedweedbrewing.com. Drink different.